the practice field this afternoon, 72 hours away from their wild card matchup with the Bears. Nick Foles gearing up for his 5th career postseason start. The Eagles currently 6-point underdogs. Of course, the underdog label suited them pretty well last year, riding all the way to their first Super Bowl championship in franchise history. And with that, we welcome you inside our studios. This is Philly Sports Talk, brought to you by Comcast Business. Amy Fadul, Mark Farzetta, joined by our Rube and Frank. And Rube, this is it's an interesting week. It was an interesting way that they got there. We saw the injury report that came out. Everybody was looking to see Nick Foles because he said he was sore, still sore. He says he says he feels good. He was a full participant at practice today. How do you think this one's going to go down?
Well, yeah, I don't worry about Nick. Nick will be fine. He's about the last guy in this team I worry about. We've seen him play, well, at a higher level than anybody in history in the playoffs, highest passer rating ever in the postseason. This is a very, very good defense. I know last year the Vikings came in with the #1 defense. This is an elite defense in their own building. The one big advantage the Eagles have is that Super Bowl experience. I think the Bears only have 13 guys who've ever played in a postseason game. The Eagles have 2/3 of a roster that's been on a run, played in the Super Bowl, played at the highest level and had success. I think that's a big advantage. But that Chicago defense, I mean, they forced 36 turnovers. You know, they are beasts, and they pressure the quarterback. They have ball hawks in the secondary, and I think that's the biggest thing is the Eagles have to protect the ball. Nick's turned it over a few times during this little run, and they've been able to overcome it. But you know, you can't. This is going to be a field position game. Points are at a premium, and turnovers are going to be fatal in this game. If the Eagles turn it over, I think they're going to be in big, big trouble. They need a clean game, and you know, nothing wrong with punting in a game like this. You can punt 8 times, score a couple times, and get out of there with a win.
Well, how do you think they're going to protect Nick Foles? Is it going to be a combination of chip blocking, double teaming Khalil Mack, because you know they're going to be moving him around, you know, from either side of the field?
Yeah, you know, I mean, they've had good success against some pretty good pass rushers the last couple of weeks, but you know, they line him up everywhere. He's a tremendous matchup. They're using Vic Fangio is using him really in a much more productive way than he was used in Oakland, and you just see him blossoming as a player. I think the best way to neutralize him is getting rid of the ball really quick. It's something Nick's pretty good at. I think you're going to see a lot of underneath stuff, throws to Nelson in the slot, Zach Ertz and Goddard, a lot of short game, and just try to keep him out of harm's way, especially with the rib injury, and just try to move the chains that way.
Let's check in on the locker room. I know, Rube, you were in there. We got Fletcher Cox and Jason Kelce on this matchup today.
So many people counted us out, but at the same time, and all the guys in this locker room believed that we still had a chance at this thing. We still had a chance to get in the postseason, and you know, now our goal was not just to get into the postseason, man. We just need to focus and take it game by game, man, because we were going against a really good football team on Sunday.
I know that if we go out there and we execute and we do what you know, what we're being coached to do, we go out the way we've been playing the last few weeks, we'll put ourselves in a position to win the game. So that's what it comes down to. I'm not at all focused on which team is more experienced or really anything to do with Chicago. To tell you the truth, I really think this is about us and how we prepare, how we execute, and that's what's going to help us be successful on Sunday.
Let's take a look at the injury report. That guy right there was a full participant. Jason Kelce dealing with that knee injury. Nick Foles also, as I mentioned, a full participant. Limited Fletcher Cox, Avonte Maddox, Jason Peters. No surprise there. Isaac Seumalo is a limited participant, maybe a little bit new in there. And Michael Bennett, he's been on this before, but nothing seems to stop this guy. Doesn't matter if he practices all week, Rube. He's always ready to go. And he has been maybe one of the best players on either side of the ball, but certainly on the defensive side of the ball, for the Eagles the last 6-7 weeks?
No doubt about it. He's made such a big difference, and he's brought the best out of Fletcher, too. There's such a great, potent combination inside-outside. He's a 33-year-old guy playing in his 17th game, so I got no problem with him not practicing. He's played at such a high level, so he needs the rest more than he needs the practice. He's a gamer. He'll be there Sunday.
Yeah, it's been pretty impressive, all these guys that are battling through these significant injuries.
Is there any big significance there with Isaac Seumalo getting those reps today? I know he was limited, but you look at a guy like Stefan Wisniewski, it seemed to work pretty well.
I think most likely Wiz will still be in there.
Okay.
I mean, Wiz has played at a pretty high level, and he did it last year, too. I think he struggled early in the year when he played for whatever reason, but he's been pretty solid. I'd have a hard time taking him out.
We all know, in case you've missed it, Alshon Jeffrey had a fun little quote that I know the fans of Chicago and the fans of Philadelphia are really keying on, saying, "I love City, Philadelphia, Chicago. I just worked there. You have a great piece on Alshon Jeffrey about facing his former team. You can check that out on the My Teams app and on NBCSportsPhiladelphia.com. You wonder how much he's going to be nullified because he is kind of that deep ball threat, and this is a defense that just doesn't give up that deep threat. You saw the yards, passing yards. You saw how many scores they give up. I mean, it's under 18 points a game, this defense. Alshon Jeffrey, how effective can he be? I mean, he's a guy that you can throw the ball up to, certainly.
Yeah, it's a great question. I think they will take some shots. I think you have to take some shots deep. Nobody throws a better deep ball than Nick Foles. He's got such great touch on it, puts the perfect arc. He has such a good sense of where to put the ball and how to lead a guy and kind of put it where only the receiver can get it. You can see he and Alshon they just have such a chemistry together. And, Alshon played well with Carson, too. So I'm not saying he didn't. But he and Nick really on that deep ball have a great connection. So I think you got to take a couple shots. You have to protect the ball. You can't turn it over. But you can't be so predictable that the defense isn't looking for any deep stuff. So I think, you're going to find a place for it.
You're looking at the way they've been able to connect over the last 3 games. Alshon Jeffrey averaging just over 100 yards per game over this 3-game winning streak that they've had. But one of the ways that the Patriots were able to beat the Bears in Chicago and be their only home loss for the Bears, that is, was because of Tom Brady, obviously, but also the fact that he was getting rid of the football quick. And I was actually listening to Ron Jaworski on his radio show yesterday, and he pointed out this stat that both Nick Foles and I almost went there. I almost went Donovan McNabb. But both Nick Foles and Tom Brady have been getting rid of the football a little less than 2.5 seconds per throw. So that's incredible to me. And you mentioned that earlier when you talk about protecting Nick Foles. That could be the key, just getting rid of the football like that.
Yeah, that's really a big part of what protection is. I mean, you're not going to hold these guys off for 5 seconds. So, and nobody's better at getting rid of the ball quick. The one thing that you wish they had is more of a receiving back. The Bears get rid of the ball quick to Tariq Cohen, who's, what did he catch, 75 balls this year. The Eagles don't have that Westbrook, Deuce, shady type of back who can catch the ball out of the backfield. Smallwood is okay at it, but, you'd like to have that one more weapon coming out of the backfield in a game like this.
The other way they were able to do it was the Patriots, that is they got some return touchdowns. Now, you had the stat on Twitter the other day about the last time the Eagles went 0 for the season on return touchdowns.
Yeah, it was 1998. This is the first time in history they've gone an entire year without a return touchdown and made the playoffs. It's only the 6th time it's ever happened. So it's never too late. Their last return touchdown was Patrick Robinson's pick 6 against the Vikings in last year's playoffs. So they've had to work harder for what they've gotten. And, those plays they're such game changers. Punt return touchdowns, pick 6s, you pick up a fumble and return it. So certainly something like that could be such a huge difference in a close to the vest game like this.
So Darren Sproles is due, is what you're telling me.
Would not shock me.
There's been a lot made of the coaching matchup as far as these guys are 2 Andy Reid disciples. Matt Nagy and, of course, Doug Peterson, both coaching under Andy Reid. They know each other. They know each other pretty well. Ray Didinger yesterday was talking about the uniqueness of a Matt Nagy offense and how he almost has plays from like Arena League days and how he has a lot of jet sweeps and different things like that. Doug Peterson's been known to have a couple of trick plays in this one. I mean, is this going to be a crazy game? Because points are at such a premium.
Well, I think it's different. I think Doug will run a trick play, but they don't do a lot of motions. They don't do a lot of that stuff. Matt has really kind of thrown a lot of stuff that really didn't come from the Andy Reid playbook or the Andy Reid tree into their offense. They're very multiple. They're very unpredictable. They move guys around in a way that Doug really doesn't do. I mean, they do what they do. They do it well, and they do it. But it's a fascinating matchup. I mean, these guys were low-level, entry-level assistants under Andy Reid for a couple of years, and they both kind of, kept moving up the ranks until they're head coaches. They're best friends. I mean, they text each other. It'd be like us coaching against each other it's kind of like the Harbaughs coaching against each other in a Super Bowl in 2012. It's really intriguing. And then you get into, you think you know what the other one's going to do, but the other one's going to change what he does because he knows that he's going to do that. And there's like the chess match aspect of it. It's going to be a really interesting game.
Literally starting from the bottom, Nagy was a coaching intern for Reid, while at the same time Doug Peterson was a quality control coach. Literally at the bottom of that food chain.
Errand boy.
Yeah, right.
That's what those are called. Give me coffee.
There's another word for it, but yeah.
We've talked so much about Khalil Mack. It's almost like Fletcher Cox isn't getting a lot of the due because it's Khalil Mack. Fletcher Cox had a career year, 10.5 sacks. I mean, this is not a team that blitzes all that much. We know that they do more on the other side. Obviously, the Bears have a lot more of a blitz. But what do you expect from Fletcher in trying to really kind of mess up Mitchell Trubisky?
Yeah, and that's the matchup that you just love in the Eagles' favor, is that D-line, just guys that are Super Bowl savvy, guys who've played at the highest level, you know, with Bennett and Long and Brandon and Fletcher. I mean, you've got a really veteran, experienced, big-time defensive line against a 24-year-old kid making his first postseason start who hasn't played that well over the last month, and that's just such a great matchup. You know, the Bears' offensive line versus the Eagles' D-line, I think, is the matchup to me. And I like the Eagles' O-line versus the Bears' D-line. I think they'll be up to the task. If the Eagles' D-line can really control this game, if they get to Trubisky, you know, get a couple sacks, force a couple turnovers, strip sack, that kind of thing, I'm really curious to see how Trubisky responds. No quarterback under 25 has beaten the Eagles in a playoff game since Scott Bruner of the Giants.
Oh, good old Scott.
In 1979. So, you know, you look at the quarterbacks that have beaten the Eagles over the years in playoff games: Kurt Warner, Aaron Rodgers, Drew Brees, you know, Tom Brady. I mean, these are Hall of Fame guys at the peak of their career. You know, Troy Aikman. This is different. This is a guy that I think the Eagles can really get to and affect with that pass rush.
I'm sure Jim Schwartz is scheming different ways to make sure he affects Mitchell Trubisky.